Hello, everybody. This is Brett Lonsdale from Lightning Tools, and welcome to this webinar. This is the first webinar in the series, actually, where we're going to be taking a look sort of bi-monthly at some of the different products that we do for Microsoft SharePoint and also those products that we do for Microsoft Teams. So today is all about Microsoft SharePoint, and what we're going to do is have a look at our product range. What we have been doing in the past is really sort of looking at each individual product in a webinar. But what we thought we'd do is change that up a little bit to give you a good sort of overview of all of the products that we have on offer for SharePoint and also Teams, and give you the opportunity, if you want to also arrange a private demonstration at the end where we can go into much more depth on each product. So basically what we're going to do is take a look at 5 different products today. And I'll tell you about what those products are in just a moment. But before I do, just like I say, welcome to the webinar. My name is Brett, and yeah, I'm a Microsoft MVP, and I founded Lightning Tools around about 14 years ago right now. So yeah, we're celebrating 14 years of building different products for Microsoft SharePoint and also filling in lots of those different gaps that you have inside the SharePoint product. So the products that we're going to be taking a look at today, we're going to first of all start off looking at permissions management, and that's the product that you can see at the top left, around about 11 o'clock on the circle here, which is a product called DeliverPoint. And DeliverPoint is a product that will help both site owners and also SharePoint administrators to govern, report, and manage SharePoint permissions in bulk. So basically what we're talking about is overcoming some of the shortfalls of SharePoint to ensure that all of the right people have all of the right access to the content. And that's, of course, extremely important when we've got things like sharing links and things like that going on inside of our sites and yeah, across the board with SharePoint and also Teams. But we're not going to talk about Teams today. That's in a couple of weeks' time. So yeah, we'll start off with that. We're also going to take a look at something called Lightning Forms, which is a SharePoint list forms editing tool. So what you can do is basically go through and add more business logic and improve the different layouts of your SharePoint list forms. And if you want to, you can also take things like the InfoPath forms that maybe you've been using in the past and look at recreating an InfoPath type form, but with inside a SharePoint list. So we can have some of that same sort of functionality that you had inside InfoPath, but driven through a modern SharePoint list that remains responsive and acts and behaves just like a normal modern SharePoint list, but gives you the ability to add much more logic and behaviors into those forms. So we're also going to take a look at the Lightning Conductor as well. So that's the content rollup tool, and we're going to build a couple of reports using that. And that will also give us the opportunity to concentrate on another product that we've recently announced, which is a free product, and that's the Lightning Filters web part. So we'll combine those two. So we'll take a look at how we can easily roll up content. We're going to do that with a hub site and also some associated sites with inside modern SharePoint, and it will apply lots of conditional formatting and aggregate functions and things like that to our view. And then we're going to go on to the data viewer, which is a data visualization tool, and the data viewer can basically go through and create charts or reports on not just SharePoint content, but also external content as well. So that external content may come from business connectivity services, it may come from an OData source, it could be an Excel document, anything like that as a data source, and then we can go through and build a useful chart that's really simple to do. Of course, there's tools like Power BI that perhaps are available to you, but sometimes that's overkill for the sort of thing that you just want to create quickly and easily with inside a SharePoint site, and that's what we're going to be taking a look at with the data viewer. And finally, we're also going to take a look at Social Squared. And Social Squared is a discussion forum tool. So what we can do is add that into SharePoint and also Teams. It's available as a Teams tab and also a Teams personal app. And again, more on that in a couple of weeks' time. So we'll be looking at it from within inside of SharePoint. And what that will provide us with, if you've been around the SharePoint space for quite some time, you may remember the SharePoint discussion list where you had like a threaded view of discussions, and really what it's providing is the opportunity for users, especially when they're working remotely, to be able to post questions that, rather than emailing someone where only the person that they emailed and the recipient is benefiting from the answer to the question, we can ask a question centrally inside a discussion forum, and that's going to benefit everybody inside the organization. You've got the features like markers answered and ratings and voting and things like that, where you can provide feedback. And it's very different to a lot of people ask about Yammer and the posts tab, what was the chat tab inside of Microsoft Teams. What this is providing is something different. It's sharing a lot of the same features, but it's organized into discussion forums. If you go and Google some cake recipes or anything like that today, you're probably going to come across some different forums where people have given their opinions, and especially technical questions. If you Google a technical question or an error message, you're going to find somebody's posted the same question about that error message inside a forum somewhere. And there's been lots of answers. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. Those that are good are usually marked as answered, and that's what gives you the feedback. So you can use that inside of your SharePoint environment to sort of share knowledge and announcements and things like that. So that'll be the final product that we take a look at today. Okay, so we'll jump straight into it because I've not got a great deal of time to spend on each of these products. So let's first of all take a look at DeliverPoint. Like I say, this is the SharePoint permissions management tool. And there's something very fundamental that makes this product different to all of the other permission management tools that you might find out there. And that is that this permissions management tool is designed for effectively users. And that might sound crazy, but users, site owners, people who create sites, using SharePoint out of the box, get the ability to go into the site permissions and they can share items, they can share folders, they can share the site, they can create and manage Office 365 groups, they can even share externally with external users and so on. So they can do all of that, but what they don't get is a really good understanding of what they just did. So the SharePoint permissions reports that you have out of the box are not that granular. You have to do a lot of clicking around, and also you can't really bulk manage either. If you take folders and documents, for example, inside a document library, when you select the ellipsis for a document or a folder and click Manage Access, you can first of all see who's immediately got access, but it doesn't allow you to dive into any security groups or anything like that. As soon as you try to select more than one item, that Manage Access option goes away completely. So there's no opportunity for them to bulk manage their files and folders, or the site or lists and libraries and so on that they're managing. So that's what DeliverPoint is designed for. It gives you a contextual way of reporting on permissions and managing permissions in bulk. You can easily add and remove permissions across thousands of objects at the same time, but you can also centrally manage as well. So even your SharePoint tenant admin, your tenant admins or your SharePoint farm, SharePoint admins can also dive in here and manage permissions centrally. So there's no screenshots or anything. I'm just going to do a live demo of DeliverPoint. And let's just Alt-Tab into a SharePoint site here. And to just give you the scenario that we're working with, I've got, in fact, I've got it open twice. So I've got here a Lightning Tools Sales Hub. So this is a hub site that I'm using inside of SharePoint right now, and it's got two associated sites as well. So a nice, easy scenario to understand that I'm going to use to demonstrate all of the products here. Here's the hub site. We've then got a North America sales, which is an associated site to the hub, and then I've also got a Europe sales, again, an associated site to the hub. So we're going to be using these for a few different scenarios. So I'm going to focus on, first of all, the sales hub, and I'm going to go into a document library here. And there's a few different documents. You can see here Lightning Tools Biggest Secrets and Lightning Tools Profit and Loss. We've got some sales battle cards and some sales brochures and things like that. And if I want to, first of all, just see who's got permissions to this content, or has any of this content been shared externally, or is there a sharing link or anything like that? What we need to do is, first of all, hover over the item that we're interested in, click the ellipsis, and this is where you get the Manage Access. So this is using SharePoint out of the box. And over on the right, it will show us here any owners, any visitors, any members, and things like this. But it doesn't really give us a great deal of information. We can't very easily sort of expand into those Active Directory security groups or anything like that to see who's got permissions to it. And the other challenge is, like I say, if I select more than one, then that manage access goes away altogether. So it's really difficult to determine whether these documents, these folders are inheriting permissions, whether they have unique permissions, are there any external sharing links, all of that sort of thing is quite hard to do when you're trying to manage this content. So let's have a look at how DeliverPoint can help with that. So what I could actually do is just select multiple items in here and go straight to the Discover Permissions. So this is DeliverPoint on the shortcut menu there, and notice that I can pull up a permission report across all three of those things that I selected and see that information in one central report across those three objects. Now I could also export that out, so I can export that into an Excel document if I wanted to. So I've got a snapshot of everybody who's got permissions. But let's take a look at the actual permission report here, so we can make it full screen. And in here we've got the file name, which all of these are actually showing as dimmed, and that's for a reason. Any documents or folders that inherit permissions will always show as dimmed. Those that have broken permission inheritance will show in full color, and you'll see a little bit more of that in just a moment. We've then got a list of users, and this is every user who is permissioned on each of these documents, even if it's implicitly. So there's no direct permission assignment. In other words, it's because they're a site collection admin or something else. Now we've got the list of users. Now some of these users wouldn't even show up inside of DeliverPoint, inside of SharePoint, no matter how hard we try to drill into it. If we take demo user 4 as an example here, I can see demo user 4 has edit permissions. And remember what you can do as somebody with edit permissions, you can also share content, so we can keep on sharing with these users. And over on the right hand side, I can see exactly how demo user 4 came about having edit permissions. So demo user 4 is actually inside an Active Directory security group called Accounts Payable, and that Accounts Payable Active Directory security group is nested inside this SharePoint group, and that's how that permission was assigned. So we can do things like filter on the different users, we can filter on the permission levels as well, and that allows me to see what permissions does demo user 4 actually have to all three of those documents that I selected. We can see who might have edit permissions or full control or anything, and this will show up any custom permission levels or any of the permission levels that we might be using, like contribute and read as well, if we are using them. And we can also go through and filter on how the user was assigned permissions too. So if I was interested in actually a group called sales, I can filter on that and see all of the users that are inside that Active Directory security group called sales, which is in turn nested inside of this SharePoint group called Lightning Tools Sales Hub members. Okay, so that's the kind of thing that we can do there. And if there's anything that we want to change, we can, for instance, break the permission inheritance. So if we wanted to break permission inheritance on a file or multiple files, we can do that. And we can also manage the permissions in bulk as well. So if I see that a user has permissions to a piece of content and they shouldn't, I can delete those permissions, or maybe they've got edit and I'd rather they had contribute. I could grant them contribute and then revoke the edit. If somebody is leaving the organization and they're being replaced, I can transfer the permissions away from demo user 9 to demo user 5 or something like that if I wanted to. And I can also copy permissions. And we offer a great way of doing that for new starters. So rather than going through and assigning lots of individual permissions to sites and lists and libraries and folders and documents and so on, you could actually create a template account called sales, for example, or salesperson. Give salesperson all the permissions that a salesperson would need, and then every time you onboard a new salesperson, you just copy the permissions from salesperson to whoever that salesperson is, and all of the permissions will be granted within the scope that you selected. Okay, so that's the sort of thing we can do whilst working inside a document library there. Now, some of these files have been shared externally, and I'd have to, using SharePoint, go in one by one to try and find out which ones they are. Now, with DeliverPoint, you can just pull up the sharing links report inside the site, and that will show us anything that has actually been shared externally within this site. So it's returned here 2 documents for me, which of course I could go and take a look at by clicking onto the hyperlink. I can see when they were shared and who shared them. Remember, anybody with edit permissions can share a document, so it doesn't always have to be an administrator. I can see the sharing type, so was it people in the organization or anybody with the link? So this example here, anybody with the link can edit, also means that anybody with the link can share it as well. And we've got contribute permissions assigned to those, and then how or who it's been shared with. So notice here, of course, the anyone with the link can edit. There is nobody explicitly mentioned in there because that's just anybody. And then this other one here, I've got Brett Lonsdale, which is actually my Gmail account, and demo user 1, which is an internal account. So if there's something in there I don't want, like this, anybody with a link can share it, I can come up to the actions menu here, go to sharing links management and delete that sharing link and just execute that, and that sharing link will be removed. So now if we were to produce that same report, sharing links report, we should just see one sharing link now, and that's it. The other one has been removed for me. Okay, so we've got that kind of functionality as well. Now, that's a lot of the contextual permissions management, but what we can do is also go into this sort of central way of managing permissions. And that allows me to see all the different SharePoint site collections. I can see Office 365 groups, and I can also see Microsoft Teams and channels and private channels and things like that as well in here. And what it allows me to do is basically just do the same type of reporting and operations, but on a larger scale. So for instance, if I drill into these different site collections here, let me just come down and see one. It's got a little bit more going on. Never mind, I can't see it. Should be there. This one will do. There we go. So permissions demo. So if I was to expand that one, notice that this one has some subsites to it, and I can tell that subsite 1 has unique permissions, whereas subsite 2 is inheriting permissions, just based on the icon. I can also see that the private document library has a full color icon, which means it has unique permissions, whereas the standard document library has a dimmed icon, and therefore it's inheriting permissions, and so on. So with all of this, I can select whatever I like in here as the scope. So we can report across 2 different objects. I can then run the discover permissions report against those objects, or I can compare the permissions. So if I see that 2 sites here have unique permissions, I could actually go and check out, well, what's the difference? And the only difference between these 2 sites is that demo user 6 has full control to subsite 1 and doesn't have any permissions to the permissions demo site. So then I can make a sensible decision as to whether actually these should be inheriting permissions as opposed to having unique permissions. So we've got that type of report there. We can also go through, in fact, whilst I'm on that one, go through and do let's do this on the site collection. So I'm going to go through and do a discover permissions advanced and include any unique objects and sharing links and all sorts of things that I can include in here, and just run that, and I'll get in one report across the entire site collection who's got permissions to what sites. So you can see here permissions demo and subsite 2, for example, and subsite 2 again is dimmed, so it's inheriting, and that's paginated, so I can keep on going. Then I've got the list permissions, in which case we can see the private document library, and further on down I get all the items which have unique permissions as well. And like I say, if there's anything that we don't like in there, we can basically just select it and come up to the actions menu and go through and manage that. So whether it's deleting the permissions or transferring them away or whatever. And then there's one final view that I want to show on this one, which is an account-centric view. And this just allows me to focus in on an account. So I can do a search on any user, select that user, and then I can run a unique permissions report. In fact, sorry, let me just, I think it's running with my selection there. Let's just close that one. I mean, easiest way to clear it. So let's just get back into, in fact, sorry, silly me, I'm looking at the wrong site collection. So let's put in demo user 4, who we know has permissions. So I can select that user and run the unique permissions report. And in here, it will tell me about any unique permissions that are assigned to that user, whether it's sites, what groups they're in, whether there's any items that they're specifically granted permissions to, which here is not the case. And then if that was the case, I could simply go through and remove that and see exactly what I'm doing. Okay, so that's deliver point, and there's quite a bit more to it, but like I say, we've only got a short amount of time per product. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea as to what you can do with it. So next up is the Lightning forms, and this is the one where we can go through and add a bit more logic and improve the layouts and things like that to the SharePoint list forms. And what we're going to do is just go straight back into a demo to show you that one. So I'm going to go to the North America sales site for this one, and in here we've got under site contents we have a list called customers. And under the list called customers, we've got a number of different customers, and we can see what their customer spend is. We can see what city they're in, what region, and so on. But this is basically just a contacts list. And you'll notice that when I click onto new to create a new customer, this is how the default contact list form will appear. Now, a contact list has quite a few fields, but it doesn't have that many compared to some customer lists that I've seen. So what you'll notice with the modern form layout is it's just a long panel of fields, and you can be scrolling up and down looking for the field that you need to fill out, which can be, of course, time consuming and confusing. So what we want to do is add a bit more logic to the way that you would fill out this form whilst retaining the responsiveness of that form, and also add a bit more logic to it as well. And actually the logic that I'm going to add to this one is I'm going to take the customer spend and have that populate automatically based upon orders when you place them. So when I go to the site contents, we've got this list here called orders, which is currently empty, and it just basically has a few fields in it. So we've got an order number, a product, and we've also got an order value. And what I want to do is embed this list onto the customer form so we can fill out a new customer, place an order at the same time without having to go into two different lists, and also improve the layout whilst taking the total order values from multiple items and putting it in as the total customer spend. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to jump back to the contacts list here, the customers. Okay, and when we're in this modern list, we can click onto Lightning Forms Customization Dialog, and that will bring us up any forms that we want to customize. I did actually just test this before the webinar. I'd be smart, wouldn't be very smart not to. So I didn't actually make any changes. I just made sure that this is going to load. So it's telling me that that's been customized because I hit the save button basically. So we can always see which forms, whether it's a new form, the edit form, or the display form, which ones have been customized and which ones have not. So I'm going to go into the new form, and this will launch the design pane for me. Now, the nice thing about this is you're not being taken into a separate application that doesn't have context to SharePoint. So it's difficult to work with environment variables and things like that when you're building out your logic. You also can easily see what this form is exactly going to look like when you save it. I'm trying to avoid the word WYSIWYG because that seems so 80s, but that's exactly what we're doing. We're designing a form here. So what we see in the designer is what we're going to get in the final form. So what we want to do is basically add a bit more of an improved layout, and I'm going to improve this layout by adding some tabs. So I'll click onto the plus icon here. These are all the different fields that we can add or remove onto the form, and then we've got things like tabs and buttons and toolbars and rich text areas and things like that I can also drop onto the form. And we've also got those other lists and libraries that belong in this site as well, including that orders list, which I'm going to embed on this form too. So first of all, we'll take the tabs. So in here, I've got a tab control now, and I'm going to add two tabs. The first tab, if we just double click that, is going to be customer details. And the second one is going to be address. There we go. All right, so when we click onto the first tab, the customer details tab, what I can do is just simply drag and drop the fields if I want to, and drop them into there. that could be taking up quite a bit of width. So if I just remove that actually, and what we'll do is just change the row configuration to 2 columns. So 2 columns under that tab. So we'll re-add last name in here, and I'll just drag up first name and full name and email address. Okay, and then we'll stick company up here on the right. And job title. Okay, and in a moment, I'm just gonna get rid of a few fields just because you'll get the idea. You don't need to see me dragging and dropping all day long. All right, so we've got a few fields that fill out that section. So let's just remove some of those. And then we're gonna go to the address tab. And again, let's go with 2 columns in there. And I can drag and drop the address details in. Okay, and we'll stick country and region under there. And let's just remove that one, and we'll add notes up here on the right hand side. One easy way of doing that, rather than trying to scroll, is to just go and add that field there, and then we can just delete it here. Okay, I'll leave customer spend where it is. I'm going to get rid of attachments, and there we are. We've got now a sort of improved layout on this form. So the next thing I'm going to do is add in a sublist. So that's going to be the orders. So I'm dropping that orders list on. Now, currently, there's no relationship between these 2 lists at all. They're just 2 completely independent lists until I click this checkbox that says I'm going to use this as a sub item. And then it says, okay, well, tell me which is your lookup column, which there isn't one at the moment. So I'm going to click onto the plus button to create a lookup column called lookup to customers. And that lookup column will now tie those 2 lists together so that whenever we create a new order, it knows that that order is going to be associated with this particular customer. So that's all I need to do. We'll just OK that, and we've now got the orders list embedded onto the customers list. So we can fill out the customer details and add orders all at the same time. So the next thing I want to do is add a little bit of logic on here. So we're going to do a simple one to start off with. And this one really grinds me. The full name field, I want that to be calculated. So I'm going to click onto the configure expression. So the configure expression allows me to choose when this field is visible. So yeah, we can hide fields based upon what permissions a user has, or what SharePoint groups they're in, and things like that, or even on what location they're in, based on their user profile and what have you. And the way we would do that is click onto that builder, and in here we've got some contextual objects, and I can pick up all the user information I like from the user's profile, and that could be the condition as to whether or not a field is actually displayed, including this is member of group. So if they are a member of a group, field could be displayed. If they're not a member of the group, then it won't be, and so on. So we can add things like that, but for this one I'm just going to do a straightforward calculation. So we'll go into the calculated, and I want to take the first name, and we're going to add that with a space to the last name, which is the title field. Okay, so we can save this one, and that's created my calculation in here. Notice we've also got some validation that we can do, default values and things like that we can add as well. Now that we've done that one, I'm going to come down to the custom spend, because what I want this one to do is actually add up all the orders and the order values and put the custom spend in. So for here, we'll click onto the configure expressions for the custom spend and go into the calculated field and expand the sublists. And in here you can see orders, and under orders I've got the order value, and inside the order value I've got the sum function, which I'm going to double click onto. So I did all of that without actually using the keyboard. I just use my mouse. So I'll OK that one, and then we're going to effectively aggregate all the order values into the main customer list here, the customer spend. Okay, and one other thing I want to do, there's lots more we can do, but I'm just going to change what this button does. So currently I've got a save button, but I'm going to reconfigure that. So I'm going to click onto the configure actions. So the save button currently does a save form and then a close form. So I'm going to actually get it to write a message out as well. So we'll simply just send an email, and that email is going to go from the current user. So we'll take the current user's email address. In fact, sorry, that was the email address on the form. Let's just do that. Okay, so it's going to go from, sorry, I was right. Never mind. Let's do it this way. So it's going to the current user's email from the email on the form, and we'll just say in here, new order, and yay. Okay, so we can add all sorts of different logic in here, but we're just going to keep it simple and send an email message. So we're done. We'll just save and close. And now when we create a new customer, we've got an improved layout. Notice there's no need to scroll up and down. I've got my customer details tab on the left. So in here we can put in somebody. So we'll put in Sandy. There we go. We've got the concatenation going on. We can put in an email address and a company, etc. Fill out anything that we need. And under the orders, we can create an order. So order number 1, she'll order maybe the Lightning Conductor, and we'll put in the value, and we'll save that. And that's new item going in there. Notice the customer spend is rolling that up. So now if we were to say she's going to place an order for deliver point as well and save that, we've now got the customer spend increasing. And now we can go through and save this, and that will send off the email as well. So new customer in here, and when we go to the site contents, click onto our orders, we can also see, in fact, the other one just disappeared. Seem to be having a few issues with that at the moment. So basically, yeah, I've got 2 items that are in there. It's just some weird CSS thing going on with this screen resolution. There we go. So yeah, 2 items in there that were also created from that one single form. Okay, so 2 products down. So that was Lightning Forms. Let's take a look at the Lightning Conductor and see what we can do with that one. So the Lightning Conductor is a content aggregation tool. We can roll up SharePoint lists and libraries. We can also roll it from Microsoft Graph as well. So that could be messages, or it could be planner tasks, or OneDrive items, and all sorts of things using Microsoft Graph. And again, you can display those results inside a modern SharePoint site, or also in a Teams tab as well. So let's jump back into the site here and have a look at it. Now what we're going to do is actually just aggregate these customers. So we've got North America sales containing some North America customers, including one of the newest ones, can't pronounce the name, from SpaceX. So we've got a number of different customers from North America, and we've also got some customers as well here in Europe. So as we go into that customer list, there we go. That one's showing in classic. Let's just make that modern. There we are. So we've got modern list containing customers there as well in the Europe site. Okay, so what we're going to do is navigate to a view that I've actually already created somewhat. So we've got one called Global Customers. And as you can see, this is taking both those lists. So we've got the items coming from North America and the items coming from Europe. And this is in real time. So you can see that new one that I created for Sandy just a moment ago is in there with that $3,000 spend. Okay, so I'll show you how we actually did the aggregation in a moment. But what I want to do first of all is just show you the sort of capabilities that we've got in here, because the nearest competitor for this, for the Lightning Conductor, is the highlighted content web part, which you can't customize. Really, you just got to use it as it is. So with the Lightning Conductor, you can customize. You can add or remove any columns that you want. So all we have to do is put the page into edit mode. And once it's in edit mode, we can just hit the drop down, and here we can go through and do things like show columns. So any of the columns coming from those lists are displayed in here, and we can basically just go through and select the one that we want to see and drop that onto the page. So if I wanted to, for example, add the modified by column, we've now got the modified by column appearing on there. Now, you can do all your data formatting as well. So on this customer spend, if I go down to more settings, we can change the display format. So I want that to show as a currency. We've got these other things as well that we can set. So we can create like summary functions and things like that as well. So I'll just save this one. And now we've got that in currency format. But I have to kind of read each individual line. So what I want to do is go in and see that using a bit of formatting. So in here, I'm going to add a data bar, and the data bar is going to go up to 2 million, which is about the maximum spend we've got in here. And let's just save that. So now we can actually see the customer spend in a different way. We can very easily see which customers are spending the most in there. And there's Sandy at the bottom, like hardly spending anything. So, so there's our customer spend. We can also go through and perhaps do some conditional formatting on things like country. So under the country or region, I can go into formatting here, and I could sort of hard code a country in there. So if I put in United Kingdom as an example, and then go through and set an icon and choose, I'll go with the theme color for that icon. So you can see here, we're getting a bit of conditional formatting going on, and now anybody in my country is being highlighted with that little bit of a theme color going on there. So what we can also do is, if I just clear that formatting, and we'll go in and add another web part to the page, and this web part is the Lightning Filters web part, which is a completely free web part. So we're going to drop that on. And this one here, we can do different types of filters where we're going to pass a filter value through to the Lightning Conductor. So we're going to make this one a choice, and I'll manage my choices. So in here, we're going to have United Kingdom. I won't do all of them because you'll get the idea. So let's just go through and add that one, and we'll add France. And United States. Okay, oops, United States. Okay, so we've got a few choices in there, and we can change the label to things like select a country or whatever we want to say there. And now what I'm going to do is go back into the properties of the Lightning Conductor, and under the columns tab here, we'll go against the country and we'll add a filter. And rather than actually hard coding the value, I'm going to use the web part on the page. I'll go to the Lightning Filters and choose the filterable value, and we'll save that. So it's going to use that web part as a connection. And now what we can do is hit that as a drop down, choose United Kingdom or choose France, and so on. And we're going to see the customers in each of those regions. Okay, so that's the Lightning Filters web part. It will work with numerous different data types. So you've got things like number filters, text filters, date filters, and people filters that you can also use and provide a connection to the Lightning Conductor. And soon that will also be able to connect to the data viewer as well. You can also use it for your own custom client-side web parts. If you develop your own, you can consume connections coming from that Lightning Filter web part. Okay, so how do we actually build a view like this? So really simple. We've got two different ways of creating a view. I'm just going to go through and add a document library rollup. So we'll call this one, in fact, I'm going to call this one customer documents. And we'll click onto the cog. Now, the cog will bring us into this quick configuration. So remember we're in a hub. I'm in the hub site now, and I've got 2 associated sites, and those associated sites are the North America sales, and I've also got the European sales. So if I want to bring the document libraries from throughout the hub, all I need to do is select documents is what I want to bring back. I want to bring back all the documents. Rather than just from the current site, I want to bring them back from the current site and associated sites and display them in a grid view. So when I hit save, that's now given me a new view that I can select. So now I've got all of the customer documents in here with folder navigation and so on. So if these were, I've got sales brochures, I've got battle cards, I've got folders, I've got invoices, and I've got purchase orders and all that sort of thing, all aggregated into a single view where I can go through and apply things like conditional formatting. The first one I did was a little bit more involved. So I did that here by selecting in the advanced mode, the object model role provider, going into the data source and telling it that I want to again aggregate from the current site and associated sites. I want to aggregate contacts, and then I went through and selected the columns. So you just get a little bit more granular options when you're in the advanced mode than what you get with the quick configuration. So in here I've got things like the customer spend, which was actually the reason why I went into the advanced mode, not the quick configuration, because that customer spend is just a custom column in both lists. So I needed to go through and select that one manually. And then we've got the any formatting. So it's formatting its currency that's set up in here, and I can set all the pagination and things like that with inside my webpack configuration. And what I'm going to do here, just whilst we're on the customer view, is go and group by country, and I'm going to add a little summary function. So I'm not going to add the summary function there. I'm going to add the summary function here on customer spend. So the summary function is going to be a sum, and I'm just going to put total spend by country. And again, we can set the display format on that one to currency, and we'll have that at the bottom of each group. So just a nice little amendment to that one. So when we go to my default view, we're now grouping by country as well. Bit of a long label there. There we go. Now I've got my total spend by country as well being displayed with inside that group. Okay, so this is the sort of thing that we can do with the Lightning Conductor. And the data viewer, this one won't take as long. So we're going to use the data viewer to do a bit of data visualization. And like I say, this can do similar things to the Lightning Conductor, but it's also got the charting capability. So you can build charts around the content as well. And you can also work with some external data sources, but it won't aggregate. It's only designed to work with a single SharePoint list. So I've not got a page for this one, so let's do that. Let's go in and add a page. And we'll name that page the data viewer. Okay, and in here we'll select the data viewer web part. Okay, so we're going to go through and configure it. And these are the different data sources that I can work with. So I've got SharePoint list and BCS, and we've got OData, SQL, Azure, and Excel, and so on. So we can go through and navigate to a particular Excel document that lives inside a document library inside of SharePoint, or just use a SharePoint list. Now, the only thing that's going to change here is the data source tab. So notice if depending on what I select here, the data source tab changes, and that's the only thing that changes. So this one will allow me to navigate to an Excel document. An OData service allows me to put in an OData service URL and so on. So we're going to work with a SharePoint list, and rather than using a grid view, which is very similar to what you saw in the Lightning Conductor, I'm going to use a charts view. And under the data source here, we will navigate down to North America sales. And I'm going to go through and select the customers. So the customers list, which again, it's just a contact list, but we do have that customer spend in here. And what I'm going to do is just put in the company and the customer spend. So these are the two columns that I want to work with on my chart. Now you can do multi-series charts as well. So actually, what I should be able to do is put in here let's do a cost of sales calculation and make that double. And in here, I'll take the customer spend multiplied by maybe 0.4. Okay, so we've got that cost of sales as well in here, and I'll just pop that next to this one. Okay, so then I'm going to go to the display, and there we go. We've got our customer spend, and I've got my cost of sales displayed on a chart. I don't particularly like the chart colors, so let's go through and change that one. I'll go with the theme color so it blends in, and we'll make it a column instead. So we've got that column going on, and the cost of sales, I'm not sure whether I like the purple or not. Let's keep with it. I'll change that one to an area. Okay, so we get that sort of opaque area displayed on there, and this is actually going to show every customer more than once. So in fact, if we had like two Microsofts, then we could go through and group by. In this case, it's not actually going to make any difference because there's only one line for each customer. But maybe if we were grouping by country or something, and we wanted to show the total spend per country, then we could group by the country and do the aggregate function on both the customer spend and the cost of sales. So that very quickly gives me a chart that I can drop onto the page. And of course, you can add multiple instances of it. So sort of get building a dashboard. And again, if I was to choose a charts view, I'm just going to go through and take the Europe. Sales in here, and we'll display just a slightly different one. So we'll have this one will have country, since they're all different, and we'll choose the customer spend again. And I'll make this one a pie chart. And if we want to, we can go through and make it a 3D pie chart. There we go. And yeah, just save that. And we've got European sales in a pie chart, and we've also got the North America sales in there as well by company. Okay, so that's how we can very sort of easily build some dashboards again in SharePoint and also Teams using the data viewer. Now, last of all, we're going to take a look at Social Squared. So Social Squared is the discussion forum tool, and if you're using Office 365, you can use it obviously in modern sites. We've also got a classic version as well. The modern one works for SharePoint 2019. You can use it in Teams, Teams tabs, or as a Teams personal app. And there's also a mobile app as well that works with Social Squared. So this is like I say, a discussion forum tool. And what we're going to do is just go in and take a look. So I've started off with a little bit of content already just to get us going. So yeah, in the hub here, I've got sales discussions. Okay, so there's the web part, and all I've done is I've created a single forum group with two forums. So we can go into one of these forums, such as North America Sales. I can see the different discussions that are going on, and we can of course go in and add a new discussion. So in my new discussion, I'm just going to put in something like selling through partners. or something like that. And I'm just going to take a bit of text, copy this, and remember what tab I was on. There we go. Okay, so we can drop that text in, we can drop images in here as well, and we've got the ability to notice it keeps the formatting from where I copied it from, but also we can go through and use the rich text controls and highlighting and things like that if we want to. Motion icons, insert images. I can also tag the content. So if I put in the word partners and sales and selling and so on, these become the different tags that we can jump straight to this content using. So I'll add that, and that becomes a new topic called selling through partners. And of course I can reply. So I can reply to my own. Just take a bit more text. And drop that in there. Okay, and again I could tag it and reply. So we get this discussion thread going on. Now, other users that are reading this, if this was maybe a question and it was answered, the one that was providing the right answer can be marked as answered. And that could be marked as answered by the person who created the topic or also the moderator. We can also feature it, we can edit it, delete it, and so on, depending on whether you have permissions to do that or not. I can also like and I can vote as well, or also give ratings on the post. There's different views. So we've got the ability to have like a threaded view or a flat view. I can make posts sticky so they remain at the top of the forum. I can also move it as a moderator. So if somebody posted a question about North America sales and really they were asking about sales in France, then clearly they posted it in the wrong forum. So as a moderator, I could move that to the more appropriate forum. We can subscribe as well. So I will get an email notification should somebody come through and reply to this post. And of course, we can do things like deleting the topics and things like that too. Okay, so normal sort of functionality for a discussion forum from a user point of view. If we wanted to go through as a site owner and add some more forum groups, I can just basically come into the properties there, add a new forum group. So that forum group that I've currently got is called Sales Discussions, and what we could also maybe have is a Marketing Discussions forum group as well. So if anybody's got any questions about marketing, they can come and post them in here, and we could maybe create one for online marketing. So we'll do that. I can specify a moderator for this particular forum and basically go through and add that. So then we'll also have maybe conferences. And add that forum. Okay, so now we've got those forums created. So if anybody wants to start a new conversation about online marketing, they can do that by going in there. And this is really what I was saying at the very beginning of this webinar was got the same kind of capability as Yammer and chat, except for you're not really looking at this chronological order where you have to scroll through a lot of noise to see questions or anything like that. You can come in at this anytime and go through it logically. So if there was, if I'm interested in what's going on with North America sales, I can go in there and see what the latest post was for North America sales. And we can go through and see visibly the ones that I've read and which ones I've not read and things like that within there. But more importantly, you can easily search. So in here, if I was to search on a keyword, I can refine that search and so on as well by date and time, but basically find content that I'm looking for very, very quickly. And there's a few different views down the left. So we've got things like the popular topics, and I've got most recent activities. I've got most active users, and I've also got the tag cloud as well. So if we wanted to jump straight to a post using the tag cloud, we can do that and access that content pretty quickly indeed. Okay, we can also create different pages as well. So if there was a marketing page, for instance, which currently we've got sales discussions. So what I'll do in here is just go through and add a page. which we'll call marketing discussions. And I can go and add social squared. Now the content for social squared is residing inside the site. So it's local to the site. You can control permissions through the site as well. But one of the benefits I've got here is I only want this forum group to actually show. So I'm going to go into the web part properties, and in the forum groups field, I'm just going to put in marketing discussions. And that's the only one that will show now on this page. So even though both forum groups live inside the same site, we can now sort of have relevant forum groups displaying on different pages within that site and through Teams as well. Okay, so they were the products that I intended to show you. And if you want to dive into some of those products in a bit more depth, you can just scan this QR code if you like here. That will allow you to book a demo, and it'll be me that carries out the demo. So we can have an hour or whatever is needed to really dive into the products and to tailor it to your needs. But also I want to open up any questions now. So if anybody does have any questions, you can use the questions box in GoToWebinar, or if you like, you can also unmute yourself you can raise your hand and I'll unmute you so you can ask a question, or there's my email address, and that's brett@lightningtools.com, and you'll be able to send me an email and I'll reply to you that way. So if you do have any questions at all on the products that you've seen, please feel free to ask away, and I'd be more than happy to respond. Okay, so I'm just going to check out, see if anybody's got their hands raised, and I'm not seeing any hands raised. I'm not seeing any questions either. So maybe everybody's decided to go and have a beer and just not really listening, I don't know. No questions. Okay, in that case, we'll wrap it up. But like I say, feel free to scan this, book yourself a demo. You'll get the meeting link straight away, or you can send me an email on brett@lightningtools.com, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you've got. And thank you very much for listening. And yeah, I hope everybody has a lovely weekend. Thank you. Bye.